Welcome to A Damn Good Question, the weekly broadcast that helps you understand the top news stories with a conservative twist.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to A Damn Good Question podcast. Sitting across from me, as always, friend, co-host, sidekick, superhero in his own right, third richest man in the world, and and the man who is running for Democratic governor of the state of Indiana.
Yeah.
Mark, how are you today?
Hi.
Anything good?
No.
No. And I, of course, your forever host, SGD.
No good news.
And we have a special program today. We have a very special guest running for Steuben County Sheriff in the Republican ticket. Who are you and what do you do?
My name is Chris Emmerich, and I'm currently a detective at the Steuben County Sheriff's Office, where I've been there for 25 and a half years.
25 and a half years. That's longer than I've been alive.
It could be. You don't look a day over 30, though.
No. Thank God. 29. Ask my wife. It's a big contention. I've never gotten past 29. I get hit every time I say it, but I've never gotten past 29. So we brought Chris in. We said we were just going to bring Chris in. Chris is the gentleman who we decided to back for the Republican ticket for sheriff of Steuben County, and we want to give him some exposure, and we're going to ask him some tough questions. Anything you want to say before we get started, Chris?
Not really. Hopefully, I'll be able to answer every question you have, and it's a beautiful Saturday morning here in Steuben County.
Yeah, I have a grandkid's first t-ball game to get to after this. Over
T-ball is always fun to watch.
Yep. Organized chaos.
Exactly.
Nothing but organized chaos. So, Chris, what are the top three priorities once you're elected sheriff in your first 100 days?
So actually, I might be able to take that down to 4 top priorities. But,
Sure, we'll take
it. So one of them, one of my huge platform talking points is getting body cameras for the sheriff's office. I believe that those cameras help hold the sheriff's office and the deputies accountable for what happens. It also is a huge protection for those deputies as to what actually occurs with any encounter they have with a civilian. And then it also provides protection for the citizens of Steuben County. Those are, if it goes to a court trial or something like that, it actually puts the juror right there with the officer and with the potential suspect or a witness or even the victim as to what has actually occurred, and they can be watching it while it actually happens. So it puts them right there in that. Another thing I think within the first 100 days and even past that is really starting to work on staff development, training, making sure that the officers have the resources that they need to actually do their job. Now, that's just not with the deputies. That's also with the administration staff, the confinement staff, and also the communication staff. So it's just not the deputies, which seems like a lot of people would think of when you talk about the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
They focus on that, but there's
Sure.
actually a lot of other staff that work at the sheriff's office that people just really don't talk a whole lot about. But they also need staff development, training, and making sure they have the equipment and resources that they need to do their job properly. And then after the staff development, seems like last few years have been very tense at the sheriff's office. We've had the election going on here, but work on the morale of all the employees at the sheriff's office. Try to get that morale back up. Get it to where they want to come to work every day, where they take ownership in the sheriff's office. Make it feel like that's that profession is where they need to be. And then to go along with that, if I can improve the first two, staff development and the morale, that should hopefully help with retention of keeping the staff there and making that, again, a career for them instead of a potential stepping stone to go somewhere else for either higher pay or better equipment or just better opportunities. But get them to have ownership in the sheriff's office and want them to stay there is really what I want to concentrate on the first year in office.
Okay. What do you think is the first area to focus on as it comes to crime in this county?
So on the crime aspect, there's actually a couple things. One, we need to make sure we have targeted enforcement on high areas for crashes, which can lead to potential operating while intoxicated arrests. We do have a good area for narcotics to pass through our area because of the I-69 and the toll road area. Marijuana is still illegal in Indiana, so we do get a lot of narcotics that come out of Michigan and even starting out of Ohio that people necessarily don't live here in Steuben County, but they go to Michigan. They buy those narcotics up there and then they bring them back to Indiana. So we do have a lot of traffic stops for marijuana, but we also need to focus on the harder narcotics such as methamphetamine, fentanyl, opioids, and things like that. If we can really concentrate on those and trying to get the dealers off the streets, that helps with the addiction of people that are addicted to those narcotics. It helps reduce the amount of crime that we have in Steuben County. A lot of times, property crimes are tied back to narcotics, whether it be thefts and burglaries, things of that nature. People who are addicted to those drugs and maybe they need money to buy them go out and commit property crimes to be able to get the money to buy those narcotics. So focus on methamphetamine, focus on the fentanyl, opioids. Obviously, the marijuana is still illegal, so that is will be focused on, but not as hard as the other narcotics that are in here. So, and then with that targeted enforcement for OWIs, just speeding complaints, reckless driving complaints, focus on those areas. And again, we have a large population during the summertime. We know that there are events that bring in a lot of people. Make sure we have targeted enforcement in those areas where we're going to have a large population present. So you don't really have to make a lot of enforcement action, but the biggest thing is having visibility. If you can get the officers out in the community, out at these events, participating in these events, they're going to be visible to the community, and that officer presence, visibility, and most times will deter crime from even happening because they see that the officers are there. Correct. So you can actually cut down on some of that crime by just being present within the community. And that even goes to at night when the officers are out driving around, making sure they're in the areas of the community that we can look back on and look at the data that we have within our reporting system, see where crimes are happening, and make sure that those officers are getting into those areas to try to deter the crime from even occurring.
What's your view on the casino proposal, and how do you think it'd affect your job?
So that casino proposal will be interesting. I know there's supposed to be a referendum in November. Obviously, the citizens of Steuben County will have a voice, and hopefully make their voice heard.
As they should.
Definitely as they should, whether they want a casino or they don't want a casino. So I myself personally, I don't go to casinos a lot. I don't like to gamble. I don't like to lose my hard-earned money, but I do go for entertainment purposes. I like the food that they have, things of that nature. So I got to look at if the citizens of Steuben County decide they want a casino in this area. Prior to that casino coming in, we need to look at the other communities where casinos of a similar size and nature have come into those communities and see what kind of issues they had prior to the casino coming in, during the construction of the casino, and then even afterwards. So if you take a look and see what issues they had, you can look at those risks and then come up with plans to mitigate those risks before the casino even gets here. I'm the team leader commander of our SWAT team, so anytime I plan an operation, I always look at what that operation is about, and I look at the risk, and then I mitigate those risks. But then I look beyond that and come up with contingency plans, because we always know that just because they have a plan in place doesn't mean it's always going to work. Yeah. So you want to have contingency plans beyond your original plan to mitigate something, because things may change, and I don't want to be reactive to something that's going to happen with the casino. I want to be proactive and get ahead of it before it actually happens. So if a casino comes in, my plan is to mitigate as many risks as possible prior to that happening, and have contingency plans in places just in case things change. Work with the other agencies within the area, work with other organizations. There's going to be a lot of infrastructure that would have to go in. You're going to have more increased traffic. So again, just a big collaboration with every stakeholder for that casino. Get together and build those relationships prior to even having it come in. And then if the referendum, they vote it down, then we won't have to worry about a casino. So now we may have something else come in, but
yeah, I'm not. I might go up to Firekeepers once in a while and blow $100 or something. I'm not a big
Yeah,
big
but you always
gambler.
lose. That's the problem.
Now, if you won all the time, it'd be a different story.
You win.
Yeah.
You have a different opinion, wouldn't you?
But once again, the entertainment value that you can have of having one around. We definitely need more and better hotels in the area.
Oh, yes.
I mean that's an important thing.
It is.
Unless
Restaurants.
Unless you like chicken, Mexican, or pizza, there's only like really one other restaurant in town to go to, which I go to frequently. Don, just want you to know.
And as I told my pastor's wife, we finally probably will get our strip club.
and then the ministry starts.
Yeah.
But
It'll be interesting.
it'll be interesting.
And we'll find out in November.
All of us who live here know that this community swells during the summer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to huge numbers during the summer. What it's like triple the amount of people during the summer.
Oh yeah, easily.
Yeah.
Sometimes even more, depending on the holiday weekends and when the 4th of July falls and Memorial Weekend,
Yeah.
Labor Day weekend, and stuff like that.
Yep.
I see that at Clear Lake, where I'm the town marshal up there.
Yeah.
My population typically in the wintertime is only like 300 some people. But in the summertime, up there at Clear Lake, my population swells to 3,000 to 5,000 people any given day. And then on the holiday weekends, it's even more than that. So.
Yeah. And none of them have been inviting us for cookouts, Mark.
No.
So what does that tell you about the people there at Clear Lake?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll put the word out for you. Maybe I can get you invited to some. So I will tell you, Miss Judy up there really makes some good cookies and cakes and things like that. So
Yeah.
Well, we wouldn't
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
well, yeah.
Yeah. I'll give a shout out to the Swanders right now.
Oh,
Okay. How'd you handle this one? Honestly, is very important to me, and I'm gonna go into it more as we go through this question. But how do you handle jail safety, contraband, and better treatment of the prisoners by officers?
so a lot of that goes back to the training issue. You've got to have the confinement officers trained. They have to understand and know what their job and responsibilities are. In any sheriff's office, the jail is probably the highest liability of the sheriff's office, as well as typically where most use of forces occur. So again, going back to that training, getting the confinement officers trained on how to de-escalate situations so they don't have to use force or as much force, by talking with those inmates and trying to de-escalate that situation, making sure that they all have the equipment that they need and the resources that they need to do their job effectively. One of the things that has come up recently in the last several years is inmates getting narcotics into the jail. We've had several instances that have occurred of that. Now, I'm not saying this is the thing that would keep all of the narcotics out of the jail, but we currently do not have a body scanner at the jail. Now, a body scanner, if you think about when you go to the airport and you walk through the body scanner, if you have something on you, it'll alert to that area. It doesn't take a photograph of you or show any intimate areas of your body or things of that nature. It's kind of like a human blob, but it shows those areas. So that might be a technological device that we currently don't have, but I would definitely look at getting to try to keep those narcotics from even getting into the jail. So that could definitely help out. So that's one aspect I would definitely look at. And then with that training and having the resources they have, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but our confinement staff are mainly 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old males and females, so they do a great job. But a lot of them, they get in there and they get the experience from being on the confinement staff, and then they look at going into actually becoming a law enforcement officer.
Yeah.
Or maybe they decide this is really not the career path I want. This is not what I thought it was going to be like. So they try it out, realize it's not for them, and then they move on. So we really got to look at retention of the confinement officer staff, making sure that you're able to develop them and get a portion of them who want to make that a career so they can actually move up into a supervisory position at the sheriff's office within the confinement division, and work their way up and stay there and make that a home for them. So they need to have ownership within that confinement area. Now with the younger generation, I've noticed that, especially being involved with them at Trine, I've taught there for 20 years, so I've seen how generations change with
Mhm.
students and things of that nature. And even my own kids seem to have, they'll stay at a job for a couple of years and then they move on to something else,
Yeah.
or a better paying job or things of that nature, which is fine. But making sure that we have the qualified people to fill those positions when those people move on to something that they want to do or something bigger and better. So we just can't take somebody off the street and do a hiring process and fill the positions because we have open ones. We got to make sure they're qualified people that go into the positions that we're trying to fill, because there is a lot of responsibility being a confinement officer. You're in charge of, right now we currently have a population that's been fluctuating right in the 90 to 100 people incarcerated. So that's a lot of responsibility to put on an 18, 19-year-old kid, being in charge of that many people. I know when I was 18, 19 years old, I was in the Marine Corps. And the last 2 years when I was actually stationed on a nuclear submarine base. And I was in charge of 25 Marines younger than me at the age of 19. I was probably about 19, 20 years old, 25 Marines under me. And my job responsibility was to supervise them guarding nuclear weapons.
Yep.
So if you
Well, that'll make me sleep better tonight.
Granted, it's a little bit different, but you've got approximately 20 to 30 individuals. Majority of them are 18, 19, 20 years of age.
Yeah.
Supervising inmates at the jail. So you've got to make sure that they're trained.
So I want to switch to one of the personal problems and issues that my family had. Our oldest son was in Walmart by himself. He obviously having some kind of mental health issue at the time. The cops were not called for him. They were called for somebody else, somebody they caught shoplifting or whatever. But then somebody from Walmart asked if they would go and speak to him and find out, what was going on. I'm gone to work. Wife's gone to work. And they told him that he had to leave, and he said, "Well, I don't have to leave. It's a public place. I'm just here in Walmart." He refused to leave, so they arrested him and took him to the jail. Didn't fight them there. Didn't have an issue. Went peacefully, quietly. Once in the jailhouse, inside a cell, he's in a fight with 4 officers. Our oldest son is 5'5", 150 pounds, but somehow in a fight with 4 officers. Obviously, having some kind of mental health episode. He then gets charges brought up on him for the fight there, right? Because one of the officers had to go to the hospital. And it spirals from there. His mental health gets worse. They lock him down 23 hours a day in solitary confinement. We're begging and pleading to have him sent for a mental health evaluation, which takes almost a year to get them to do it. The guardian ad litem goes in front of the court and says how he's being treated and how he is being handled in the jail is appalling. They said that he only has a thin little blanket. We'd go to see him, and sometimes without ever making a move, they would tell him that he refused to come out of his cell. Well, we know he didn't. We know that they never even walked back there, or that he wasn't allowed visitation for the day, or some other excuse, right? And then other times we'd get a chance to see him, and he'd have more bruises, and he'd have more cuts and more scrapes, and their thing was, oh, he's always doing that to himself. Fast forward, he gets the mental help. He goes in front of the judge. The judge is like, I can see the huge difference. Can see that, and we can see that now that things are being taken care of, that you are a totally different person. The person that as because he'd seen the judge before, The judge is like, this is the person that, I more know of you to be. But we're not going to let go of the things that happened in jail and sentenced him to prison. They sent him away to maximum security prison for 5 years for the fight with the officers in the jail. So none of that, I mean, you go from this little point of being picked up at Walmart to ending up in 5 years in prison. Okay. Okay. He's doing his time. Okay. I mean, he's in jail 7 months, and they try to kill him. Matter of fact, he had to be life flighted to Parkview when they tried to kill him in prison, because here they thought, okay, we got this little small guy. You want to be a member of this gang in prison, you're going to have to kill somebody. They tried to think they were going to take the smallest guy and kill him. Didn't work out so well for them either. But he was stabbed like 17 times, punctured lung, life flighted out. Fast forward to a couple years of him being incarcerated. Wife and I are out. We're out at a public event, and she sees one of the officers from the jail. He's at the event doing security, full clothed, and she speaks to him, and he does the absolutely ridiculous of talking to my wife the way that he did. And I try to be extremely level-headed, and I'm a big supporter of the law. I'm a big supporter of law in this country, and if you do something, you have to pay for the crimes that you commit. But when he finds out who my wife is, his response to my wife is, well, your son's nothing but a piece of shit. And he says it over and over to her. So much so that I have to grab her and pull her away and say, you need to just walk away right now. This isn't the time. This isn't the place. The anger. How would you deal with an officer who acted like that in public to a mother who was obviously distraught about how her son had been treated? And he was part of the initial fight that sent him to prison for 5 years.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's a lot of information there on that.
Absolutely.
So, yes.
And I said I was going to have some very hard things, and
So, not breaking down everything
Sure.
with everything you just talked about there, because there's a lot of things that occurred. Might have been able to be handled differently. I'm going to kind of hit on two aspects of that.
Absolutely.
You asked me about the end result there with the officer and that confrontation with him and your wife. But I kind of want to go back to the beginning and kind of stress a point where I talked about training of these confinement officers. Now,
and that's what brought us to this.
Without knowing all the circumstances of it, or how long ago this happened,
right?
Or who
5 years,
who we're talking about, even. So again, looking at the training of the confinement officers, we need to make sure that they're all trained properly. Make sure that they have the tools and resources available to them for situations just like that. So without knowing which officers are involved, what training they had, what training they didn't have, I'd be interested in how they actually tried to de-escalate that situation to begin with. Was it de-escalated properly? Did they even try to de-escalate the situation? So without going back and looking at it, I'm just taking a guess as to what they may or may not have done. But again, that's kind of going back to my focus of training the confinement staff and making sure that they're trained well, resources, and have that de-escalation training. They actually have some that they put on all the time in the area. It's called crisis interventions training.
And this is one of the this is one of those funny things when it's brought up in court. Let's see what happened. Mm-hmm. There's no video of it.
Right. So and that obviously I can't answer to that because there are a lot of cameras within the jails.
Absolutely.
There are very few spots in our jail that are not recorded. So and I can't answer to why there wouldn't be video of that incident from that time frame. That's something I didn't have control over, but we do have a recording system in the jail. We keep those videos for a period of time. Now after that period of time has gone by, those recordings get recorded over.
Yeah.
They fall off the system, things of that nature. But if there's a incident
Sounds like the Epstein files, doesn't it?
within the jail, that video should be retained.
Yeah.
But again, I can't speak to what happened back then. So,
Right.
now I can tell you, kind of jumping forward, had that officer, that confrontation occurred. I always grew up and was always told, especially by my mom and my dad, my grandparents, always treat somebody how you would want to be treated.
Yeah.
So think about it in that aspect. How would I want, if I'm talking as an officer to your wife, I would want that officer to talk to your wife as if they're talking to their own mother, or they're talking to their
Correct.
own wife, or their own
Absolutely.
sister, or whoever it may be, and give them the respect that they deserve. Now, tell them that their son is a piece of shit, I don't agree with that. I don't believe in that. And I would never want any of my officers to ever talk to anybody like that again. Now, if that complaint gets brought to my attention as the sheriff, then yes, it will be dealt with accordingly with that officer. Again, that goes to bringing the officer in, finding out what occurred, get their side of the story. One of the biggest things I learned from my grandpa is there's always, three sides to a story.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
This side of the story, this side of the story, and
And the
then
truth.
usually what actually happened in the middle.
Absolutely.
So at least, I'm going to give that officer the opportunity to tell me, okay, what happened? What did you say? What occurred? As well as get her information and find out from her and from you, that witnessed it, what occurred.
Yeah, I'm standing there, and
Right.
she just, she told him who she is and who our son is, and that's when he just said,
Right.
"Oh, he's a piece of shit."
Yeah, so
He's
I
a
don't,
piece-
I don't
and-
agree with that. I
Yeah.
don't believe in that. And if that actually is what occurred, then that officer will be dealt with through our disciplinary system that we have set up. So I do believe in progressive discipline, find out what happened. Now, there are some instances where, depending on what occurred, it may go from, instead of a counseling, a warning or whatever, to some other form of higher discipline based on the circumstances. So, but I would not, my expectation of the officers that would work underneath me, whether the confinement staff, the deputies, communication staff, that is not how you treat somebody, and
No.
that would be
Yeah.
dealt with.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And-
it's tough when you're dealing with young people.
and I'll
Really
be 100% honest. If it wasn't for the fact that he was in uniform and he continued to talk to my wife like that, there would have been I would have whipped his ass myself. You're not going to let somebody talk to your wife
Right.
like that, but he knows, being the way that he is at that point in time, that he's going to get away with it, because if I make a move other than pull her away and tell her that we're walking away,
Right.
then I end up in a similar situation.
Right.
And
And that officer may believe they're going to get away with it. However, if a complaint is brought to the sheriff's attention, that the complaint needs to be investigated, and then that individual needs to be dealt with accordingly, depending on the outcome of that investigation. So, and I don't know if you made a complaint about it against it or not, but
I was traveling at the time, so I don't know if exactly what my wife followed through
Okay.
with. But
Fortunately, there's a lot of incidents like this on both sides. I have to deal with some people that are, lack of a better word, rough all the time. And I don't know how you guys do it. As police officers, I don't know. I think I'd be pulling my gun, shooting people all the time. What'd you say? How dare you call my mother that?
Now-
so again, that comes back to our hiring process, making
Yeah,
sure
I
you
wouldn't be
have
hired.
good,
That's for
but
sure.
the-
qualified
there's-
people that
but
you're
there's definitely
hiring.
been times that's ran through your mind. We'll take that as a yes.
Well, it's tough, even in a little city like this. It's
Yes.
tough
Yeah.
because there are just on both sides, just unacceptable.
Mhm. But you still got to treat people with dignity.
And
so.
it's really tough.
Mhm.
It's really tough. Man, I can't even imagine working in a city, New York,
No,
especially with what's going on nowadays
Yeah.
with the police and defund the police.
Mhm.
Polices are
That's the
disrespect and everything. And
Yes.
that's why people get
The-
shot in Minnesota.
so
Personally,
so if you go into the bad neighborhoods
Uh-huh.
in any of these big cities, they're not the ones calling to defund the police. They're actually
No.
saying we need more police.
exactly.
It's the dumb, and we say it here all the time, white liberals who want to defund things because they think they're helping, and all they end up doing is hurting the people who actually need the protection the most.
Yeah, it's a mess.
And you don't have to agree with that. you don't have to agree with that. But I mean, it's we're sorry, we're putting Chris in the hot spot here. So how will you manage the budget without cutting public safety?
So the budget, currently, the sheriff's office has the largest budget within the county. It's about $7.2 million.
See, we already know where we can cut.
So that's with the sheriff's office, though, with the confinement, the jail, and the communications and everything like that. So it is a large budget. We have 80 some employees. So I actually look at the budget like I treat my own personal finances. I don't go out and buy things that I don't, or I only buy the things that I actually need.
Yeah.
I'll put my needs before my wants. Now, if I want something, I make sure that I either save for it or I make sure it's within my budget for that year that I can go out and we can purchase that item or whatever. I don't like spending beyond my means. I like staying within the budget I set for my wife and I set for ourselves. I do the same thing at Clear Lake. I budget everything up there. I stay within my budget. I've stayed within my budget for 10 years. Emergencies do happen. So you have to, again, kind of going back to what I do with the SWAT team, is I have plans in place or contingency plans of, okay, I don't anticipate any emergencies coming up.
Sure.
But I know that more than likely it's going to happen.
But that's why they're called emergencies.
Exactly.
We don't expect them.
We don't expect them.
Yeah.
But you can still, looking over, previous years, maybe have an idea that you may have things that come up. Then you make sure that you budget the money to last as throughout the year. Don't budget the money to only last till June and then hope that you can come up and figure out what you're going to do from July to December. Budget it for the entire year. We know that our staffing levels, we have increased calls for service during the summer months.
Yep.
Chances of overtime is going to be a lot more
During
than
the
in the
summer,
wintertime.
yeah.
So if you watch your budget and your overtime early in the year to make sure that you have money available during the summer months when you're probably going to be working a lot of overtime. And then that way, when things start to slow down a little bit in the fall and the winter, you have enough money to carry you through the entire year, just like our Marine Patrol grant and things of that nature. Typically, we get a grant, which obviously is not guaranteed, but we need to make sure when we get that grant money for the Marine Patrol that we budget it to last all summer long, not only last the first month or two, and then the end of the summer we have reduced coverage.
Yeah, you can't have a kegger the first weekend.
Right.
Yeah.
So get her all done. Cover for the whole summer. We know July is really busy. Make sure you have money budgeted for July, August timeframe, and then when you're getting into Labor Day, so try to get that money budgeted all the way through. So staying within my budget, working with the county council. Obviously, if emergency comes up, to have that. To be able to go there for more appropriations if necessary, but really just being fiscally responsible. I don't like paying taxes any more than anybody else does, so I feel like I need to be fiscally responsible with everybody who lives within the county who is paying taxes with the money that they're paying, making sure that money, every dollar is being used in a wise and efficient manner. Not being wasteful of money, making sure that if we absolutely need something, we get what we need. If we want something, okay, let's look at that. How can we get that? Can we get it through grants? Can we get it through donations? Or if we can't, I need to make sure it's in the budget for next year to get this item. So body cameras are one thing. I need to make sure that I can either budget for those items, get donations or grants for them. I talked about a body scanner in the jail. Again, either make sure the money's there in the budget, donations or a grant to be able to get those items, and work with the council to make sure that money is available. If I apply for a grant, let's say it's a 50% matching grant, I need to make sure that the council and within my budget, we have the other 50% available. I just can't go out and apply for a 50% matching grant and then get the grant and hope I have the other 50%. Right. I have to know I have that money before I even apply for the grant.
Yeah.
So it's just being fiscally responsible with the money and staying within your budget. So I'm a huge proponent of staying within my budget. I do that every day in my personal life.
Is are you affected by some of the state cuts in money?
So you're talking about SB1.
Yeah.
Yes, there's obviously going to be, it's going to affect, can affect the whole county. It's going to affect more of the smaller communities, more so than the county. especially like the town of Clear Lake, Fremont, Orland, Ashley, Hamilton, maybe. It's going to have more of an effect on those smaller communities than what it is on the county. So, but yeah, there's obviously going to be some effect on the sheriff's office now. Once that all gets figured out, that's something we definitely will have to take a look at as far as how is that going to affect the budget at the sheriff's office, and what do we need to make adjustments in to make sure we're covered.
Give me an example of a policy that you would change on day one. But of course, there might not actually be one.
You know, so we have a lot of policies at the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
So going through those, one of the things I kind of have thought about when I get elected sheriff is, you know, looking at it as a new leader coming in, you really need to take a look at what is going on within that organization and make sure that any changes you make, those changes may need to be made gradually, because the worst thing with human nature is people fear change. The reason they fear change is because it's that fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
So if I go in and start making radical changes on day one, that's not going to help me with I talked about earlier about the morale at the sheriff's office.
Correct.
So I need to go in, and any changes that are made, I need to make sure I talk to the staff prior to those changes being made. Now, again, I don't take office till January 1st, so I can't make any changes prior to that. Now, I can have ideas of things I want to do, but on January 1st, I think it would be very ill-advised of me to go in and make any radical changes on day one.
Sure.
Now, to say that there aren't going to be some minor changes, yeah, that very well could be possible. But I want to look at, within that first 90 days, talk to all the staff, get their opinions of what's working, what isn't working, what does need changed, and then make those changes gradually and make sure that I'm talking to all the staff prior to making those changes so they understand, why are we making this change? And if you don't agree with this change, let me know. Maybe you have a better way of doing things. I don't have all the answers. But talk to them and have them have ownership of those changes. They're more likely to accept the changes and agree with them then at that point, if they have some, if they're able to put their input into that and talk about those changes. So, for as any drastic changes, nothing right off the bat. There's going to be maybe some minor changes of some things that I definitely do want to look at, but to say they're actually going to happen on day one, probably not.
Is there a policy that you hate? Is there one that you look at and go, man, that just that's a detriment to our service?
I don't know if there's any policies that are a detriment to our service. Our policies have gone through a lot of review, a lot of legal review. A lot of the policies are there because of case law that comes down, because of liability issues, because of state law, state mandates, and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So to say there's a specific policy that we have that I don't agree with, I don't think there probably is one. Now, we do have things that aren't necessarily policies, but we have directives that can come out by the sheriff that aren't in policy, but just like things of, I as the sheriff am directing this issue or this thing like that. So I can tell you one of the things I would look at probably right after taking office currently we have a directive out there that law enforcement agencies that have body cameras, once they enter the jail, they're to turn their body cameras off. Okay. I will really look hard at on the agencies that have body cameras, allowing them to keep their body cameras turned on and recording, because if that officer is bringing an inmate into the jail or a prisoner into the jail, they may still be doing their investigation, such as an operating while intoxicated arrest.
Sure.
So while they're in the jail, they're still doing their standard field sobriety test. They're still interacting with that person. They're maybe offering them a chemical test, things of that nature. And up until the confinement officer actually takes possession of that person, they're still in basically in the control of that arresting officer. So they may need to have their body camera active to record that information for their investigation. And then once the prisoner or person is turned over to the confinement staff, at that point in time, then they would need to shut off their body cameras. But they would right now, as soon as they enter, they have to turn them off. So I think that is definitely one thing I would look at right away and review that directive. We have, like I said, we have a lot of cameras in the jail. So yes,
Yeah.
there are things that are being recorded, and that agency or that officer could get access to our recordings. But again, they have to then request that video that the jail has for their investigation, when really they're still conducting their investigation and they should be able to have that. Now, again, we also have to look at, there are areas within the jail that the bathrooms, things of that nature, that yes, I would not allow them to be recording with body cameras in those
Sure.
intimate areas. However, there are ways with the body camera system that you can edit out those areas where maybe some recording did happen in an intimate area, or you can blur those out and things of that nature within the program software. So that's probably if I have to look at pick out any one directive, that would be one of them I'd look at right off the bat.
Okay, gotcha. I brought up the point of like mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's a better way? Obviously, mental health is really become a topic, and a lot of times the mental health is drug induced, or drugs become part of it because of the mental health problem to begin with. Do you think there's a better way, a faster way of getting people help once they get into the jail?
So you got to look at a couple things when people are in the jail with that mental health. If they definitely need the mental health evaluation, working with our current medical provider, and of course with Bone Center, Northeastern Center, who are two organizations within the county, getting that mental health evaluation to them as soon as possible. So working with those organizations, we're kind of at their mercy of when they're available to come in and do those.
Yeah, I mean,
so-
it took a year,
Right.
and then they sent him to a state hospital instead of locally.
Right.
I think things could have been done a lot quicker. Things could have been done much, especially when we're, yelling from the top of our lungs. Listen, this is a mental health problem. Instead of thinking that he's trying to be this way, look at it, and the mental health problem doesn't excuse bad behavior.
Right.
It doesn't.
No.
It doesn't. But when you can see the difference between being taken care of and not being taken care of, and what a difference that it makes in a person's attitude, their ferociousness,
Right.
their willingness to cooperate. I think we've got to find a way to, especially if people are saying, hey, this needs to be done, instead of waiting for it to go through a court system to come back and say, hey, this is what let's go ahead and try this. Right. Let's take a look.
Right. And you also got to look at, so one, that's working together as a whole justice system, as far as between the sheriff and the confinement staff, working with the prosecutor's office, and then working with the court system to make sure that if this individual needs a mental health examination, needs mental help, to get everybody involved as soon as possible so that they can start making those decisions and getting those court orders maybe made, or directives and things of that nature, to be able to get the mental health services in there or to get that mental health evaluation done. You also got to look at, if a person that is in our facility, are they pre-sentence or post-sentence? Because if you're not even sentenced yet, some of those services that the jail can offer are not offered to those individuals, versus if they're post-sentence, then they have more services available to them. So, and some of the reason for that is, if somebody is post-sentence, you don't know how long they're going to be there for.
Yeah.
They may be there for a day. They may be there for several months. Typically, the majority of them all have a bond where they could bond out potentially, if they're able to have them, have somebody bond them out. So they could be there this week. We may be able to start the services, but then next week they bonded out and they're gone. So how do you make sure they continue with the services after they've bonded out? Where somebody who is post-sentence, we know how long they're going to be there for. They're serving a sentence in the jail, or they're sending to DOC, and they have a known time frame of how long they're going to be there for, and they can make sure that those services that are being offered, they have the time frame to actually go through and maybe complete those programs. So it's always looking at how can we offer the best services to pre-sentence inmates, but also have those services continued once they maybe bond out or no longer incarcerated in our facility. So working with local organizations, making sure that any services that can be offered, we can get those offered to those individuals while they're incarcerated, but also try to make sure through those organizations that they continue with the services once they've
Yes.
been released.
Yep.
Whether that's mental health issues or whether that's addiction services, things of that nature. Because we all know that while they're incarcerated, they have a lot of time on their hands, and a lot of times they want those services offered to them. But then as soon as they bond out, there's
Yeah.
nobody there
Yeah, making
guiding
sure.
them or making sure they're actually continuing with those services. So it's got to be a group effort, a collaboration of all the organizations coming together and trying to do what's best for that individual at the time frame. So is there a miracle answer?
No.
It's just trying to work together and getting those services in there.
We
Right
are
on.
blessed in this community to have both Northeastern Center and Bowen,
Yes.
and also to have a halfway decent hospital.
All paws and claws?
And it has the what?
All paws and claws?
We
Joking.
we got quite a
No, we
good
have
services
we
there.
have some for a small community.
little town.
We have some very outstanding services actually
Mhm.
for
We do.
for a small community.
Yeah. Don't you
How-
have a kitchen? Don't you have a
I don't.
No?
I don't.
gotcha?
I think the talking about the personal
Oh,
account was
yeah.
enough.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. Was enough. Gotcha. How will you measure if your leadership is working?
I think I could measure that by the morale at the sheriff's office, whether people still love coming into work and want to be there and be involved in the community. I can tell you after 30 years in law enforcement, I still love coming to work every day.
Awesome. awesome.
But that would be one measure. Are the staff, do they want to be there? Do they want to come to work every day? And are they still engaged, and are they still trying to take ownership of the sheriff's office? So that would be one gauge I think I can measure if my leadership is working or not working. And then also, again, our retention of officers.
Yeah.
Most people, if you really talk to somebody who works in any profession or in any place, it doesn't matter how much maybe you pay somebody. If they hate coming into work or don't like being there, you could pay them all the money in the world, and they're just not going to be happy, and they're going to move. They're going to want to move on.
I
So making
found
sh-
the more they like coming to work and everything, then you can reduce their pay.
That's
what I.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
so really, I guess just really looking at the employees and see if they're making sure if they're happy and their morale is good, and I'm taking care of them. And
Oh,
So
oh,
there's 87.
and probably
there's 80 some currently at the sheriff's office between all the staff.
With all the staff and
Mhm.
administration.
and probably if you continue to get reelected, I would
Correct.
imagine as long as you
So-
get
How long
reelected,
is
it
the term?
shows.
4 years?
So it's a 4-year term, and then you're run for reelection, which would be another 4-year term, and then we have term limits in Indiana for the sheriff. So
Okay.
after that 8 years, you wouldn't be eligible to run again. However, you could sit out for a 4-year term
Yes.
and then rerun if you
We
wanted
just
to.
had somebody do that, didn't
So
we? In
that
the
does
past,
happen.
Past we have had.
So
We could have you for literally 16 of the next 20 years.
I will tell you
He's
that
like, oh no, no.
that is very unlikely.
Okay.
I will let you know I'm 52 years of age. If I get elected, I would be sworn in when I'm almost 53. If
Uh-huh.
I serve an 8-year term,
Perfect.
then yes,
Retiring.
I would be at the area of my life where I would want to retire.
Well, this country won't be
so-
around anyway, so don't
I
worry.
think 30, almost. So I've been in law enforcement for 30 years now, so another 8, so 38 years, 39 years
Yeah,
in law
it's a good
enforcement.
time.
I think,
Yeah.
I think I may be
You know
ready to
what?
retire.
We'll probably have to get you a gold watch.
Maybe.
Just a couple more things, Chris, real quick. Why should voters trust you over your competition?
So I think the biggest reason they should trust me is I'm really pushing for accountability and transparency within the sheriff's office. staying in contact with the community, keeping people informed, and overall, if you want to stay with the status quo, then I'm probably not the guy you want to vote for. I really want to push the sheriff's office to be better than what we are. We have a good sheriff's office, but I think we can be better. So I think the changes that I want to make, again, within the organization, working with the staff and getting their ideas and getting them to buy into the changes and having that ownership of the sheriff's office, is why you should trust me and vote for me.
Right on. Now, I know we talked earlier about the marijuana, and we talked one of the things that a lot of people don't talk about, marijuana coming into Indiana from Ohio and Michigan a lot. People don't point out that in Colorado, after the first year of pot being legal in Colorado, traffic accidents went up 700%.
Correct.
700% for what's supposed to be a harmless drug. So it is a reason to keep an eye out. It is a reason for the sheriffs to still be trying to make sure that that's not a problem. Drinking and driving has gone down, but the use of recreational drugs and driving has gone up. So they got to keep an eye on that. So those of you out there who are thinking, "Oh, it's just pot," well, sure it is. Till they run into you, crash your car, and then it's not. So, anything else you'd like to say, Chris, before we wrap this up today?
Just May 5th, the primary. If you haven't early voted, which has actually been open since April 7th, go make sure you get out and vote. If not on May 5th, before May 5th then.
Well,
So
I tell everybody, vote early, vote often.
It's because you are a Democrat.
When I voted the other day, 'cause I did vote early and everything, I got done, I pressed my little button, and I went around. Then I went right back to, because nobody did. There was nobody there at the time. So I went back and talked to the ghost, and I said, okay, now I have this idea I'd like to vote on. They would not let me, so I want to tell you that we have some good. Solid voting security there, I guess.
glad they're doing their job.
Yeah, they're doing their job. So no
the-
voter fraud in this county.
So those of you out celebrating Cinco de Mayo, obviously you're not going to have to worry about it because everybody's going to be out voting. What do you think? Last question. What do you think is the biggest mistake that most sheriffs make that you'd like to avoid?
Not being present. They, especially depending, and I'm not talking about all sheriffs. I mean, each sheriff's individually, but I think not being present and not knowing what's going on within the organization because they aren't present. I understand, obviously, yes, sheriffs have a lot of responsibility. They have a lot of things that need attended to, meetings they have to go to, keeping those relationships with everybody.
Podcasts they need to be on.
Podcasting in the morning, being on a radio station maybe in the morning, things of that nature. So I understand that there's a lot of responsibility with the sheriff, but just making sure they're present within the organization, making sure they're available for both, not only the community, but being available for all staff members 24/7. So just being present.
Right on. Any other questions, Mark?
No, I don't think so.
Studio audience.
Oh, yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
From this distance?
Yeah.
Anyway, I used to do jail ministry. In our church. I invite atheists, everybody. You're talking about mental illness. The church helps you even if you don't want to go to heaven. Anyway, I did the jail ministry, and there's 125 prisoners there. Yeah, I'd say the first third, man, they want to change their life. This is not working for me. Middle third, they stood there like good Lutherans. Back third, they didn't want to care at all. They just looked over to the side at the girls. But some of them did change their life around. I got a long story about how a motorcycle, I'm a biker, motorcycle gang confronted me when I had my pretty daughter on the back. And they were, oh my gosh, I wanted to stop the bike and just start a fight right then, what they were saying, but I didn't. I had the most powerful bike around. I said, hang on, Katie. And away we went and left him in the dust. Well, I got invited in that gang when I was walking down to the liquor store. And they thought, what do you got in that bike to run away from us? And I was still red in the face, mad, and I was ready, and Katie wasn't with me. At that time, I was a powerful guy, and I thought, I'm going to kick some butt here. And I got to be friends with him. And I always invited him to church, like is my policy. Anyway, then I went to the jail ministry, and by golly, 3 of them were in the front row. And they turned around and faced everybody, and they said, listen, it was me and my buddy, listen to these guys. If we'd have been listening to these guys, we wouldn't be here. And they went on for half an hour, and I never said a thing. And then they were done, and we went home. Lives are changed by jail ministry. So I went here in Steuben County, and I asked, at that time, I was still into it. We moved up here. And I said, is there a jail ministry? And no, we don't want one either. And I think it helps your mentally ill people.
Yeah.
If you can reach them, you can. Some can't. Some others you can't. But I did, like the first third, or maybe even the 2/3, I would say I was successful. Back third.
So what's the question though?
Do you want to have a jail ministry here?
So the answer to that question is yes. We currently have the Gideons that do come into the jail. Currently come into the jail, and if the inmates so wish to partake, they're allowed to. But yes, I would keep that going on where they come in and have the jail ministry and things of that nature. And to add on to your question, several years ago, we used to have a chaplain for the sheriff's office. We have not had a chaplain at the sheriff's office for probably 12 to 15 years, but I've actually talked to 2 individuals doing my door-to-door campaign that I've had conversations with about bringing that chaplain back to the jail, or back to the sheriff's office, being available for the community and being available for the jail staff, the confinement staff, or the communication staff, and both the deputies as well, just as a resource for them. So one of the things I do want to look at after being elected sheriff is bringing that chaplain service back to the sheriff's office. I have 2 individuals that have already committed to me that they'd be more than happy to get that program up and running, and bring it back and have that service not only for the community, but for everybody at the sheriff's office. There are times when deputies are out in the field and they're having an encounter with somebody that, maybe that deputy isn't very well suited for that encounter. And if they have a resource available and to call somebody out, such as a chaplain for the sheriff's office, that they can bring to the scene to maybe help with that individual, or if they're making a death notification, things of that nature. I've made a number of death notifications over my years, but some deputies don't feel comfortable doing that. It's just not something they like to do, and I can understand that.
Yeah.
And if they have somebody such as a chaplain that would be willing and able to come out and be with the officer when they make that death notification, that could be a huge asset for him. So I'm actually looking at bringing that back.
Yeah, Gail Fisher, we were talking about earlier. He was
one of them.
He was the last.
Yes.
And they got rid of and I don't exactly know why, but it was the sheriff at the time. And this is 15 years ago. And I think there were some issues, but it wasn't solved, and the jail chaplainship was discontinued. So, yeah, that'd be great if we brought it back. You know? It's a good program, and
Everybody needs Jesus.
the Gideons do go in now.
Yep, they do go in now, and I would continue that program. So.
Okay.
Right. Anything else?
I think that's
Last
it.
word.
That's it.
All right. Hey, we want to thank Chris for being here with us today. Voting is open now, early voting. And then the primary actual voting day is Cinco de Mayo, May 5th. So make sure you get out there before you go have your drinks.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of Mexican restaurants around here to go enjoy on that day. Because like we say, chicken, Mexican and pizza. You want something else, you're in the wrong town. But maybe the sheriff can strong arm some people into changing that. But hey, we want to thank Chris for taking his time. We want to thank him for his dedication to this community. We look forward to you serving as sheriff.
I appreciate that. I want to really thank you guys for having me on here this morning.
No problem.
And one last closing thing, being a veteran myself, I just want to thank all the veterans out there for their service to their country and stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. Without veterans, we're not a country. Think about that. Remember that. So we want to thank you. So thanks, and as we always say, have a great weekend. And until next time, God bless. Be safe.
Bye.